What's up, you guys? It's me, B. Riley. Thank you so much for tuning into the channel. And today we're going to go ahead and get started on another project. Now, the thing with this project is that I've put constraints upon myself. It's going to be strictly a budget build, but it's a used-only budget build. And the objective is to build something to kind of throw into the custom shop territory as far as just what you can achieve with a bit of time and attention to detail. So anyway, our mule's actually going to be a 2010s Gibson SG Special. These things are everywhere. You can find them on Craigslist, you can find them on OfferUp, you can find them on eBay, and typically speaking, they're trading for somewhere between $550 and maybe $900. $900's a bit on the high side. If you get ornate with certain options, or if you find like a special matte finish, those can kind of sometimes drive prices up. But for our actual project, what we're going to be using is just a basic natural finish. It had the satin red finish. I've already since kind of hit it with a Scotch-Brite pad and seen if we could get some depth out of it. And the reason is because I want to leave some of this finish underneath. I don't want to completely eliminate it in modifying this guitar because, you know, we're going to do a nitro job, and as it starts to wear, I think it'd be cool if the red kind of made an appearance just before the wood hue kicked through. So we're going to go ahead and try to keep as much as that as possible. Now, we've already done some fill plugs on it. One in the center here, you can see where typically the humbucker lead would drape through. And also we've still got to fill this one, and we've got to do some fills over here, but we've already filled the stop tailpiece. So I got impatient and I jumped ahead. Now here's the thing, we still have to actually unclamp the neck because the neck is broken. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at that. And here's the reason why. I got this for super cheap because the neck was cracked. And to tell you the truth, you know, fixing a cracked neck is not nearly as complex as most people would believe. But anyway, let's go ahead and get the clamp off of this and see if it's successful, because if it's not, we're up Fudge Creek, and this will not properly resonate because of where the crack is and where the nut rests as you're playing and it's strung up. Okay, so we can see right here where the original crack was. And there's some glue over, you know, that you've got hindering reflectivity, but you can see the thickness there. So we're going to go ahead and hit this button, which is going to suddenly relieve all of the pressure, and then we'll find out. So I'm actually going to go ahead and do this. Well, I don't hear anything yet, and the crack looks uniform. I don't see any separation. It looks like we got it. I hope we got it. The other side was a little uglier. Let's have a look at that. That looks pretty good. Yeah, it stayed together. It stayed together for the kids. Thank goodness for Type Bond 2. The big secret with Gibsons, if you don't want them to break, just never drop them, not once. And certainly don't bump into a doorway while you're walking on or off stage or anything like that. If you do that, if you could only do that, they would truly last forever. But you know, hey, when it comes down to the factor of everlasting, you know, there's one thing the universe has ever taught us, is that we value things because of their conclusivity, not because they go on and on and on. So, you know, they got to break sometimes. That's just the way of the world. But in this case, it looks like we were able to bring it back. This thing has got one more shot. Okay, so big thing here is that you don't want to take off too much material from the body. You're just trying to level everything off on the top. So we got to dig in a little bit because the factory finish has a really open pour, and also we have to knock down all the levels on the fills so that it's totally even. Now they're not going to disappear into the wood, obviously, because the grain proliferation is going in a different direction and it's a different hue of wood. But essentially we can get it level enough and flat enough where after a coat or two of clear and wet sanding that essentially the seams and the fills should essentially disappear. Now we've got quite a few people that follow the channel here that are living in extremely cold climates, so I know that there may be a moment where you're tilting your head or maybe just rolling your eyes at what I'm about to say, but at this point of the build, I started running into a lot of trouble with lacquer kicking off. And the temperature drop was not really very extreme. It dropped from essentially maybe 70 degrees in the sun down to about 65 degrees, maybe 60 degrees with some cloud cover. And almost immediately, this guitar started bunching up the lacquer finish. There was a lot of orange peel, more than typical. And the Waco brand clear started to really misbehave. Now, there was a part of me that was tempted to actually push it up to this cherry red point, give it a wet sand, and call it done. But the fills on top were never arranged in such a way that they were prepared for a translucent finish. Otherwise, I would have changed the grain orientation so that I could try to blend the hues together. So at this point, it's all or nothing. So over this beautiful red finish that needs a lot of wet sanding to be really, really level, we're going to go ahead and scuff it, level it, and shoot a bit of blue over it, and then finally we're going to shoot our final color, which is a glitter green. It's like a very hot rod motorcycle helmet type of glitter green that you might see during the late 1960s right up until about the mid 1970s when glam was proliferating everything, and a lot of guitars from the 60s that were relatively inexpensive at the time, which are now a little bit more historically valued, were always painted over, just kind of modified at will. So that's what we're doing. We're building kind of a garage modified custom shop killer that has glitter green on it, but it's wearing out and all that sort of stuff. So if you see me wet sanding certain parts of the finish and being like, what are you doing? That's already kind of gotten to a place where it's acceptable. That would be the reason behind it. Now, you can actually stop at this point. And like I said before, I was very tempted to stop on the red because I have a feeling like if it was buffed out completely that the finish probably would have been one of the better finishes that I've done. Rather surprising since I was doing a very quick job on it. But if you did want to see what it would look like buffed out and you wanted to just stop right there, then this would be the part right here. Get a lot of really good depth out of this finish with almost no work at all. Just a couple of circular overlapping motions on a buff and bam, you're good to go. And that's it. Anyway, let's go ahead and see what the blue lays out like. important things. This is where the finish really starts to develop or really starts to fall apart. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, this finish, it's just been fighting me all the way through the build and really creating a couple of difficult situations. But I kind of knew what I was getting into. A couple of years ago, I made a glitter P-base for a touring musician who's here in San Diego, and it was days long and it was nightmarish. But you want to know what? That's nothing ventured, nothing gained. Now with this, you need to spray on the flake very, very light so that it maintains its upward trajectory. That's what gives the reflectivity and the sparkle as you're looking at it. And then you need to intersperse the clear with that. It's really tricky, and it's quite nerve-wracking when you're watching the texture of this lacquer turn into, you know, the surface of a stony planet somewhere. So this is really the part of the refinish that is do or die and really defines whether it pops or not. You want those flakes standing upright so you can't lay it on too heavy. Otherwise, the reflectivity gets muted and it starts to just look a little bit more of an olive drab green. Now, we do have an unfortunate situation here where on one particular part of the guitar, no matter how many times I went back and prepped it, we started having delam issues. And it was on the back over by where the stomach would be. And I think I know why that happened. I think that happened because the previous owner had it where that part of the finish was really broken down and away. And I think that there was still some residual material that was in the wood, and we're having a delam issue on the back. Luckily enough, it's right where the belly cut is, so even as we get really heavy checking over there, a lot of it comes out in the sanding. Now, when it comes to the wet sanding on this, you're gonna have to start with 400 grit. This stuff really fights you. The glitter underneath really makes the clear coat fight back. So you got to start with 400, just concentrate on getting it level without burning through any sections, and then prep for a second clear coat, because we have to get enough material over it where we can get a good shine, where we've got a good level surface and we've got good reflectivity and light getting down into the particulates so that they reflect back and really show off that flashy green. So right now, big thing, getting everything flat. And I'm going to tell you right now, prepare. While these time lapses don't look too demanding, the truth of it is that I have at this point been wet sanding this guitar or buffing parts of this guitar for pretty close to 2 or 3 days. It's quite a lot. Is it worth it? Yes. Was I happy when this part happened and the delamination on the back of the guitar fell apart in front of me? That was a tough spot, but you want to know what? It was where we were going to do a wear pattern anyway, so if you're going to have any defect, that's the place to have it. You know, it would have been so easy to just leave the red. Or to just leave the blue. If I had just skipped a step by spraying glitter on this thing, I could have saved myself days. But that's not what we're doing, you know. We're not trying to requisition time here for, you know, to save for a rainy day. We're trying to invest our time. We're trying to put time into this guitar and make it something unique and make it something different. And you know, so far, I think that we are successful in that. Is there room for refinement? Yes, there is. This thing needs a lot more buffing and sanding to get it straight. There's still some textures that are not exactly where they need to be. There's some orange peel that, you know, I don't want that there. We're going to have to get that texture out. But the finish is still kind of gassing off and still evaporating off. So, you know, you can always come back 16 hours later and still see a bunch of texture in it. But we'll get it there. You know, it's getting close. But the thing that really excites me about this guitar is that I never used to build stuff like this. You know, we were always doing repairs and everybody always just wanted their guitar put back to the way it was. There was no push for the new. There was no want for something different, for something, you know, really outrageous looking. You know, everybody was too cool to play something interesting on stage. You know, but I like this because it does have that practicality. You know, it's a 1958 Impala with disc brakes, you know. It's a Ferrari 308 Dino with low profile tires so you can go around the sides, you know, of the mountain roads. This thing is going to have, you know, a completely modern quick connect electronic system, some humbuckers that are going to be super reliable, and it's going to have a great tailpiece that's going to look the business but maintain tuning. This thing has to, you know, run and drive as good as it sits there. And that's what we're doing right now. And I love that we get to do that because these days builders are just building crazy stuff all over the place. You know, getting out of the body norm, you know, builds of years ago, getting out of just solid black, solid white, you know, whatever it is. Getting out of that utilitarian sense of instrumentation and getting into the concept that not only is what you're playing your art, but you're using art to play it. So why not hold something that really resonates with you personally? I like that we've gotten to that point as a builder culture, that there's no wrong way to do it. There's just your way to do it. And if it works for you, then it is right. And I really appreciate that in a cultural sense, that right now we've gotten that way. And as much as we like to bash the internet and talk about how we're always on the screen too long, because we are, the truth of it is that this new Instagram culture of you know, builders and tinkerers, bouncing ideas off of each other. You know, all of us watching each other's videos and seeing each other's photos of guitars and then building our own interpretations. It's just so much more expressive than it was 20 or 30 years ago. And I find it funny because sometimes people talk to me, oh, how do you feel about being into guitars, you know, as guitars are going away? As kids just want to be DJs. But the thing is that every time I go to a venue, I don't see DJs on stage. I see a bunch of, you know, 22-year-old kids and they're up there holding the cheapest guitar that they've got and they're making all this great noise. You know, and the best part about it is sometimes they're holding this cheap gear that they've got and they've already gotten at it. They've painted it. They've made it their own. They've made it weird. They've made it strange. They've made it unique. They've made it theirs, you know. And when I see stuff like that, I just can't help but smile. You know, that another 100 years from now, people are still going to be doing this sort of stuff.